I think there's a pervasive belief that, gosh, as we age, we need to slow down, and I think it's absolutely wrong. I think as we age, we have the ability to speed up.
Hey there, and welcome to the Evolving Ageless podcast. This is the enlightened woman's antidote to aging. I'm your host, Michelle Dreilich, and as always, I am on a mission to change the way women age. And so each week, I am joined by experts in their field, physicians, entrepreneurs that are bringing us the latest and the greatest research. And so this week is no different. In fact, have you ever met someone that you just kind of instantly connected with? Your backgrounds don't even align. You come from different worlds. Maybe this person has left a mark in your mind or in your heart, and you just know that that is someone that you want to stay closely connected with over time. Well, that is today's guest for me. I am thrilled to introduce you to Stanford Graham, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him as we get into this. He's probably the most mindful, soulful entrepreneur. He's got an incredible story to share, and I've called him the American Richard Branson. In fact, because I just think he's such an inspirational human being. His life journey is incredible, and I'm so excited for him to share it with us. He's a serial entrepreneur over and over again, but spent his life in the field of law. He's an attorney. He's an athlete. He's an inventor. He's got patents on nationally recognized products to help children learn. But his recent pursuit in the last few years of breaking the world's record for the 1 mile run for men over 50 is his latest pursuit. And he's been working at it for a while, and he's told me he's 3 seconds away from breaking the world record. And so that's his latest pursuit that led him to his latest endeavor called Elements Meals. And so I'm going to bring Stan on. Hey, Stan, how are you?
Morning, Michelle. Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't know if you heard my little intro, but I am just such a huge fan of yours, and I'm so
Mm.
excited for you to share your story with all of us because I think we'll all connect to you. Uh,
Well, thank you. Coming from you, that's very humbling, knowing a little bit
oh,
about what you've accomplished in your life. So, thank you.
oh, you're so sweet. Okay, so I want to start at the beginning because
Mhm.
I love the fact that your beginnings are not unlike most Americans in that, this this return to our roots. So I would
Mhm.
love for you to tell us a little bit about how it all began for you.
Well, I'm the second child of 9 kids, and
Well, that's
well,
different
all
than most of us.
we share the same mother, and I have great parents. I grew up in southwestern Idaho on a small farm, and I spent my years as a young boy growing up on and working on small farms, and we raised what we ate. I didn't know how important that would be to me later, but it did turn out to be. We had some real natural training just by living. And so uh, anyway, that was I'll tell you one thing. One thing that has given me perspective in my life is I lived one generation away. I guess to my grandpa. I lived 2 generations away from a man who dug his own basement, and that's kept me kind of given me perspective in my life. My name, Stanford. I'm named after my maternal grandfather, and and my he and his wife, my grandmother, they grew up in the Depression. Raised a family during the
Mhm.
Depression, and I have his personal history. And part of that personal history is that when they had more kids and they had house, that he dug a basement with a
Wow.
shovel. And I don't know how many of us would ever consider anything like that now, but it's we're really just 2 generations from that kind of living and that kind of technology to solve problems.
Mhm.
And
Which
so,
which is, it's shocking when you hear it, but it is it is a return to the earth, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
when we knew what we had to do and we just did it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It wasn't convoluted with technology or laws and getting involved with,
Yeah.
can I
Shovel.
do
Yeah.
this? Is this
Shovel.
legal?
Yeah. That shovel's pretty simple technology and it still works
Yeah.
today. It's a good,
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're
but I
working on
went,
the farm, you
yeah.
spent life like that and thought, I got to get out of here, or you thought this is going to be important for me?
Well, it was a great way to grow up. It was a great way to grow up. I did end up going to undergraduate school. I ended up studying what I really was passionate about, which was philosophy and economics. I took 2 degrees there. I studied philosophy at school, primarily in economics, and fell in love with that. Then I had a philosophy professor who I admired so much. He was actually a professor at law at the law school there at Brigham Young University, and I admired so much his intellectual ability. He had his mind, he just blew me away. It was always like a roller coaster experience to go into class and to buckle in and say, okay, he's going to give a lecture and this is going to be a ride.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
you've known those kind of people, right? That
Yeah.
when they go, and then you just have to stay right with them, intellectually as they go through whatever monologue or whatever dialogue they're conducting. But wow, he was just an inspiration. And I remember speaking to him after one class, asking, and this was the kind of professor who'd come in and his hair would be all over the place because he rode his bike to school. He's one of those guys. And we had a phenomenal lawyer and a very well recognized academic in law. And he said, I asked him, I want the skills you have. I want the intellectual skills you have. How do I do that? And he said, well, law school's good. And not necessarily because of the substance, but also because of the procedure, just the intellectual rigor, that kind of exercise. Obviously, practice yields outcomes. So I ended up going to law school in Pennsylvania. I went to Villanova Law, and then came back to Utah. I grew up in Idaho, but I came back to Utah again to do some additional postgraduate work, and then I got busy as a lawyer for a couple of decades. So I ended up specializing in international commodity transactions, which was a really strange and arcane place of law, but it was also very exciting. It took me around the world in terms of meeting people and putting deals together. Part of my story, Michelle, is that you've mentioned I'm an athlete. I am. I've always done that. Like I've always brushed my teeth. I've always trained every day, Part of what I found brings me joy and happiness. And so it was a few years ago that as a consequence of some personal tragedy and challenges that I went through some surgeries, corrective surgeries, that I about just lost the use of my arms.
Wow.
And my shoulders, actually, some reconstructive surgery that went really bad. And it put me in a health situation that was very compromised that I had never been in before. And I remember talking to a surgeon up at the University of Utah. He's saying that we're going to have to do this again, and there's there's 70% chance you're going to lose most of the functionality of your shoulders. And I said, well, that's not acceptable.
That doesn't fit the narrative that I've been following my whole life.
Really, that kind of gets in the way of it.
Certainly can't farm like that. But
no, but it was a humbling experience, and it put me in a position of physical vulnerability. And for me, one of my challenges is that my physical conditioning has a lot to do with my psychological conditioning. Like if I'm not well physically, I'm not well mentally. Yeah, and I'm sure I'm not the only one like that. There's we're built like that. We're being well in our minds has a lot to do with being well in our bodies. Descartes got it wrong. We are not dualistic. We are whole people. And how we think is a function of how we are in our hearts and how we are in our souls, how we are in our bodies. And so I learned it was during that time that I actually part of my physical training became just walking. That was all I was able to do. And it was during that time I went from walking actually to eventually running, and where I came up with this objective of mine, this goal as well. If Bannister could run a 4-minute mile, then I can. He was a little younger, but he didn't have any training technology like we do now. He didn't have shoes like we do now. He ran on a cinder track, for crying out loud. So the tracks we have now, are like are horizontal springboards. I mean, they're fantastic. So I set this objective of breaking the world record for the 15 over men's mile as a consequence of, well, that's on the way to 4 minutes. And so, that's what I'm working on. I have not been a runner. I played some basketball and skied as well competitively, but so I've taken up running really late in life. I'm 58, and I took it up after I was, about 52. And I've learned a lot from that, Michelle. One of the lessons is that as we get older, we can accelerate. There's
in a positive way.
In a positive
right?
way.
Yeah.
Physically, intellectually. There's this, I think there's a belief out there, you in the medical world in which you live, and I think there's a pervasive belief that, gosh, as we age, we need to slow down. And I think it's absolutely wrong. I think as we age, we have the ability to speed up, to increase the intensity of what we do, to increase the intelligence about what we do, but we don't have to diminish our goals. The body is a fabulous work of art and biology, and it can perform remarkable things if we take care of it and fuel it, and keep just sharpen the saw.
That's right. So. And so let's talk about that, because you're first of all acknowledging that where you've been, picking up a degree here and a degree there, and what's amazing to me is that when you find something that you're interested or passionate about, you just kind of conquer it. And that's your personality. And if you look all the way back through your life and the way you've described it, the way I've heard it several times, you're just a conqueror, right? And so now you find yourself at 52, you're enjoying this running, and you realize, hey, this is attainable. I can actually break this goal. And I love that it's just out of your grasp, right? Because that's probably what's fueling you.
That's right.
The fact that you haven't quite conquered it. But I think what it's done for all of us, right, is evolve the science of something that you just said a minute ago, which is fueling our bodies. Because my background is nutrition. I've lived in the world of nutrition, and I know the power of positive nutrition, whether it's just on feeling good, looking good, or reversing disease. Nutrition is the root of most of that. But I love what you're talking about, because now you're putting nutrition to the test, right? Because it's saying, I'm 3 seconds away. I'm fine-tuning a very, very difficult challenge and almost insurmountable. And I'm going to use nutrition to help get me there, which kind of brings you back to your roots, right? You were on a farm. You recognize the value of food back then. And I think you probably more than most of us who grew up in a city don't have that connection to the earth, to our food, right? So let's follow that, because I think it's remarkable what you're talking about, what you've developed. And I mean, even Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, I mean, you're being recognized around the world for this Elements Meals and this idea behind bringing food back as medicine.
Yeah, and isn't that sad? I mean, on the one hand, it's great because if you talk about going full circle, I mean, in the area of medical nutrition, and think where you focused your life and have been so remarkable and made such an impact, that somehow we have removed ourselves from the source of our food, and we have become, part of my personal philosophy, we have become acquainted with and fine with substitutes. And we don't, and as a consequence, the relationship that we have with our food has become damaged.
Mhm.
because we identify as food things that are not food. They're edible products that are a function of, reconstructing petroleum chemicals in certain ways. So then we consume those things because they have energy units like calories, and we think that they're all equal, and they're not.
Mm.
And one of the beautiful things I wanted to do was reintroduce people to food, so that when I think I may have told you in one of our conversations that as I was training, the most important thing, I have a professional coach, and he told me, Stan, the most important thing that you can do is recover
Mhm.
from your daily training. You can show up for training, and that'll work well because I can push myself. That's fine, but recovery is the most important part of my training, and that involves there are two components generally to that. One is nutrition, and the other one is sleep.
Mm.
And if you don't get those two, he told me, if you don't get those two, don't train, because then your training is an attempt at injury, and you'll succeed.
Yeah, that's
If you don't,
brilliant.
and this,
Yes.
if you don't fully recover, if you're tapping your body and you're tapping your mind, to push limits that they're capable of reaching,
Mhm.
because I just personal philosophy, if we never reach our limits, we'll never exceed them.
Mm.
And most people are afraid to reach their limits because it's never comfortable.
No.
But so being comfortable in discomfort is a great way to approach life, because you can actually get some things done and meet some wonderful people in those places. But staying recovered,
Yeah.
and specifically on the topic of nutrition, staying recovered was absolutely necessary.
If
And
you're
so,
if you're not recovering, right, you're just breaking down.
yes,
Right? So
yeah,
it's it's the opposite of recovery is
yeah,
damage, right? Is injury. And
yeah,
so micro injury that we don't think about, right? But I think most Americans walking around out there are not recovering even from just day-to-day
no,
tasks, not from training, from
no.
day-to-day life, right? So
But we're given plenty of opportunities to compromise in our life, and we're given, and compromise is made convenient.
mm,
And if I would describe our food system now, it's compromise convenience,
yeah, right.
and it's done the worst things to us. So in it, it's how prosperity can become a real challenge, right? So now um, we're probably one of the sickest countries in the world. Well,
And we
we have
don't
the
wanna hear
opportunity.
it. We
We have,
definitely
yeah,
don't wanna hear that. Yeah,
while we have
because
the,
we're America.
while we have the opportunity to be the best,
Yeah,
we could be the best
yeah.
and be leaders, in that way, and help other countries avoid what we have, where we could say, hey, well, don't do this because we did that and it didn't work.
Yes. Yes, right, look at
We could
us.
do this whole vicarious
Yeah,
learning thing,
right,
hey, let's learn
right.
from those people over there,
And
what
now
they
what
did
we
wrong.
know, I think the challenge is what we know about epigenetics, right? Our
Mhm.
genes and our environment is it's worse than just our food supply is
Mhm.
crappy and what we're eating is overly processed. It's like we're affecting future generations. Our DNA is being altered by the food we're
Yeah.
eating so that our children and grandchildren and our great grandchildren will will likely not be on the same trajectory that we were on when we were born, right? Coming from grandparents that ate what they sowed, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's incredible. So Elements Meals, though, came from this idea, right? It started with
Right.
athletes. That was your original
Yep.
vision, right?
Yeah. I made these elements meals, what we call elements meals now, because I couldn't find what I wanted. My coach tells me recovery is the most important thing, particularly because you're over 50, then recovery just
Right.
becomes so
Harder.
much more important.
Yep.
It takes longer to recover. And the key component there, the components like I mentioned are nutrition and sleep. And so what I was looking for is as a solution, how can I eat what I want to eat whenever I want, wherever I am? I'm not going to adjust my lifestyle Americans are notorious for that. We're certainly not going to adjust my lifestyle to accommodate,
Oh,
you know,
well, I have to carry
to
a
get a
bag.
better outcome, you know. So I just look, I wanted, and it came down to me wanting to finally discovering what I was looking for was farm food in a bag. It was the same thing I wanted when I went to school. My dad prepared a sack lunch for me and my brothers and sisters every morning. And it was, hey, I just want a brown bag of farm food that I can eat anytime, anywhere.
Mhm.
And so that was my business partner and I. That's the objective we pursued. Very simply, is farm fresh food in a bag.
Mm.
And so we have been meticulous. We took probably close to 3 years sourcing our food suppliers, the farms that had soils that had practices that we respected and that they could sustain to where we could get our vegetables, you know, and then growers as well, ranchers, you know, who would raise livestock. It's so strange nowadays to think, well, this is grass-fed beef. Well, what else do cows eat? You know, they're not supposed to be eating corn, you know, or byproducts of corn or byproducts,
Soy.
for crying out loud, of bone meal from other animals. I mean, what?
Yeah.
So we take all of our, you know, all of our animal proteins are normal. They they eke out their living in the pasture, you know,
Right.
and we harvest our vegetables when they're ripe.
Yes.
Like,
Right.
hey, that's a good idea, you know, instead of harvesting them before they're ripe and then trusting the transportation system to give them the latitude of, you know, to ripen off the vine. Like, how does that happen?
Right.
If you detach a life source from the life source, if I detach fruit or vegetables from the vine, it's like anything else that's detached from the life source, it begins to die.
Ah, it's decaying. It's not
It's
ripening.
holy cow! It's like, oh my gosh. So as I get into this, as you can imagine, Michelle, when I start,
I just
part of our
realized that.
part
Sorry.
part of our solution is putting Elements Meals together. As I knew, freeze drying was a fantastic food technology. I mean, what it did was create the opportunity of food not being required to be refrigerated or cooked. I mean, it provided a shelf life for nutrition, right? That was extended.
Right. Right.
Because I grew up hiking, you know, the Sawtooths and the Tetons and Wind River Mountains and stuff. So we ate freeze-dried food occasionally. It was exceptionally expensive back in those days, but it was light, and I mean that's what you were gunning for. So you wouldn't have to carry around cans of food in your backpack.
This is so different, though. Elements Meals, so
Yeah.
different. This is like gourmet, farm
Yes.
to table.
Yes.
You know, when you described for me just the process, here's the thing that I love: your care and compassion as you have. It's almost like I envision you in the field, right? Like the green
Mhm.
beans, the way you described it. Like we revamped our green bean process
Mhm.
because we wanted to make sure there was more nutrition in the green
Yeah.
beans. Like it just blows me away how much thought went into. You know, it's way more thought than most
Mm.
people give to even their food or where it comes from.
Yeah.
But it's incredible what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. Everybody has a strength in their life and an area of, you know, attention that they want to focus on, and mine happened to, you know, turn out to be food in this particular instance. And when people ask me about freeze-dried food, what is that? You know, because we talk about there's dehydrated food and sun-dried food and those kinds, a lot of different kinds of technologies to, you know, attempt to preserve food. I mean, you know, the Italians have used salt. Well, the Mediterranean and the Middle East has used salt as a preservative for food for thousands of years, right?
Right.
And so, so what's freeze drying? Well, freeze drying is a fascinating technology by which water in the food is removed from the food is in a frozen state. So if our food is frozen at 40 degrees below zero, then it goes into freeze dryers, and at a certain atmosphere, in a vacuum, and at a certain atmospheric pressure, the water changes from a solid state to a gaseous state instantaneously without passing into a liquid state.
Mm.
And so freeze drying is a fascinating technology by which water can be removed from food, so that when I say what we do is we ship nutrients. We don't ship water. We provide nutrients to people in the form of whole foods
Mm-hmm.
with the water removed. So the cell walls of our food is preserved. Our freeze drying technology is the best in the world. And
You
the
went
food remains.
where did you go to get your freeze dryers? I remember you
It's-
telling me this
yeah,
story. These are not just I mean, so
yeah,
granted, we've been freeze drying in the US for
long
a
time.
long time, decades and decades. But that wasn't it. That wasn't
No,
good enough. Where did you go?
we didn't go to Ace Hardware. You know, that's a great place to
No.
get a hammer, but but not freeze dryers. So Denmark is there's a company in Denmark that has the best, that creates the best freeze drying technology around.
Yeah.
So that's where we went. That's where we found it. That's where we got that tech. And so what we really, part of our vision, Michelle, was to provide what I wanted to provide, both for myself and by extension for others, was that farm fresh food, nutrient dense food that's grown in a healthy soil. So
Yeah.
you know, that miracle that happens between earth and seed and water and sun
And
is
life,
captured.
right?
Yeah.
When it's inside of me, it's part of
Yeah.
life, right?
Yes.
So what I think is amazing is, Elements Meals seems to have followed the path, right, that you would expect. It was in extreme sports, right? That's where
Mhm.
people are most likely to say, yeah, I'm all in for good, high quality nutrition. I get it with fueling and recovery. It's not surprising that the space program, right, it was
Mhm.
interested in it. The space
Yeah.
program was thrilled when you
Yeah.
came along and said, I've got actually real nutrition, because we know
Yeah.
actually when astronauts are in space, lots of degrading things
Oh
happen in
yeah.
their body. So, but now what I think is most amazing is, these early adopters are the extremes, right?
Mhm.
Space, extreme athletics,
Yeah.
Spartan races is coming a little closer to mainstream, right? But now
Yeah.
we're seeing Whole30. We're
Mhm.
seeing, I don't want to call them diet programs or weight loss programs, but they're like lifestyle programs where they're
Mhm.
helping people make the shift over
Yeah.
to farm to table whole food based
Yeah.
diets. And so I love that we're starting to see Elements Meals pop up everywhere, not just in the extremes of space and
Right.
high end athletes, but now
Right.
it's available to everyone. And so I
Right.
want to know some of the names of your food.
Coconut mango chicken.
Yeah,
Coconut
right.
mango chicken. It is, which includes real coconut, shavings, big coconut shavings, and fabulous mango and cauliflower. We hand cut all of our vegetables, and they're specifically sized for each meal, not just to give, generally speaking, for all of our meals, not to give, just to provide an eating experience that will that meets the satiety requirement for you. You'll eat these meals and feel, boy, that was great, and I feel fueled. I've got enough food in my stomach. But the satisfaction level, the different layers of savory to sweet to salty to tangy, all those layers are very important for humans to be satisfied after they eat. So so they don't go looking for a snack after they finish a meal.
Right.
So yeah, coconut mango chicken. We have a country herb chicken, which I call, that's our comfort food meal, because it's fantastic, with some really beautiful russet potatoes and some wonderful mushrooms and green beans. I mean, it's wonderful. Uh, we have a chipotle turkey scramble, a sweet potato hash. We have red lentil dal. That's a vegetarian meal. It's one of my favorites.
Mm.
We've got a mixture of cumin and cinnamon and fennel seeds, and along with what else you'd expect to find in dal. It's fantastic. So we have 9 different meals right now, we have something to satisfy everybody. But it's maple mustard pork, balsamic chicken,
Ooh.
pomodoro.
Mm.
And so we've changed some processes. Our nutrition profiles for each of these meals is fantastic. In fact, calorically, they range from about 270 to 400 calories per meal. But even Spartan racers, I mean, these hardcore men and women would tell you that these meals will fuel you for 5 hours easily.
Wow.
On that
They're
kind of
nutrient dense.
yes, that's the difference between eating two Twinkies, which will give you 300 calories, or eating an Elements meal. It is entirely, it's a galactic experience. Differentially, they're completely different. And so, although the calories may be, the only thing they have in common. So.
And so what I love about it also is, lately we've all been secluded in our homes,
Mhm.
but as we venture into the world, right, we find that lives have become busy. I mean, probably I've been even busier since this sheltering in place. I've said this several times. It's been a blessing, but it's been really quite
Mhm.
challenging,
Mhm.
time wise. And so, I think we've gone from, okay, I'm going to eat out all the time because I don't have time, to I'm going to have these meals brought into my house and I'm going to
Mhm.
cook them myself. And I've heard, what's funny about that is people that I talk to still say, yeah, but you still have to cook it. It's just so much work, right? And I think, God, it can't be
Yeah.
any easier. It's coming to your door. But it's true. It makes a mess. You do all this stuff. And
Mhm.
so when people are looking for how can I get the right kinds of foods, because it's not always affordable to do a big grass-fed meal, or maybe for one person living alone, or
Mhm.
things like that. Like, I think it's wonderful that Elements Meals is able to not only provide that sound, dense nutrition, but it
Mhm.
accommodates. It's so easily accommodating for someone's lifestyle, and
Yeah.
especially for people that are making that shift, and trying to learn
Mhm.
how to eat really well, and are likely adding exercise into their lifestyle so that now that takes up more time
Yes.
that they didn't have before. So I
Yes.
think it's a really brilliant idea.
It's what you say is so consequential. It's uh, sometimes the things that we understand the least are the things that are most obvious. Like the greatest discoveries are the things that are so apparent that they're transparent. We look
Mhm.
past them or we look through them. It's like this resurgence in nutrition where we're discovering that the dalliance we had with technology to think that a TV dinner was an advance just because it was different and created technologically differently, and we could eat it somewhere else instead of at the table. Like that was progress. You know, not sitting at a table with somebody and not sharing a meal is extremely detrimental to human relationships. I mean, sitting and eating is a sacred practice.
Mhm.
Breaking bread together is a sacred practice, and it still can be, and seeing food as sacred,
Yeah.
and regarding it as that, seeing the earth as sacred and regarding it as that is very healthy, and actually the reality. And the closer we can return to that reality, then the healthier we're going to be, not just physically but mentally. I mean, so
Mhm.
but giving people options, Elements Meals. What you say is the if I want to train and if I want to get in shape because I haven't been training, then I'm going to give something up.
Yeah.
Because it's going to require time for my day. So I got to give something up in my day that I'm currently doing, right? If I want to cook my meals because I want them to be quality meals with fresh foods, then I'm going to give something up
Right.
because shopping and cooking require time, and you can't compress that labor
Mhm.
into a shorter time frame. So what I wanted to do was to provide the convenience for whole food without compromising the food.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we talked about earlier, a lot of people will not change their lifestyle to get something better. And so recognizing that, yeah, everybody's full tilt busy. We're all engaged mentally and emotionally and physically all the time. And people are stressed out over all kinds of stuff. The last thing we need to do is say, hey, eat better and here's some more stress.
Yes.
Here's
Right.
a side helping of stress with your plate
Recover
of food.
quick.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we know that stress is a contributor to chronic inflammation.
Oh, it's the biggest catabolic
So
contributor we
yeah,
have. That's right.
so
That's
so
right.
Elements
And
Mills, I
so
looked at
that's amazing.
well, I just say I say life. One of my metaphors I use in my conversations is life is a hunt. It's perpetual, and there's no finish line, right? There's no finish line. Like you said, when you're 3 seconds
No.
away, so that you're in that red zone, and it motivates you. Well, not having a finish line is a great motivator.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
always in pursuit.
In
And it's
pursuit.
great.
That's right.
So you're always in pursuit. Life is a hunt. You're always in pursuit, and so you have a nutrition quiver, and
That's right.
Elements Mills
I
is
love it.
an arrow in that quiver. There are lots of options, arrows you can put in your quiver. Be aware of the arrows that you're putting in there, because those are the ones you're going to pull out.
Yes.
Those are the things you're going to eat when you need them. And there are a lot of products that are made these days in powder form and pill form and things like that are worthy and have a place. Bar form, but eating whole food is best.
And you said something earlier where you said practice yields outcome.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting to me is this is almost taking your whole life full circle, right? With where you began and bringing it all the way through to, you've gone through even, as you said, you diverted into law for a while, but always coming back to creating things to help people, whether it's children learning or now with Elements Meals, it's not just for athletes and astronauts, it's for busy people and that are really mindful about the quality of what they eat. So I'm so glad you were here today to share your story. I meant what I said in the introduction. You just have such a soulfulness, and your passion for philosophy has served you very well, because the perspective that you have on just about any topic we've discussed is just mind-boggling to me. It always, just like your professor, when you and I meet, I always feel like I've got to stay complete. There is no cell phone, what's going on, because I'm completely engaged in your words, because you're very mindful and soulful, and you come from a place of letting your passion drive you. And I just think it's incredible. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation to be with you, and tremendous respect for the work you're doing. Tremendous respect for the work
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
I'm changing the way women
speak with you.
age,
It's
Stan.
it's the just acknowledging that is possible is mind shifting. It's a massive paradigm shift, and I appreciate that so much, because I do, like I said, I believe that we can, as we age, we can accelerate.
That's
We
right.
can become better, and so the attention that you're bringing to that, the direct attention that you're bringing to that, to a population that needs hope, that is true, and knowledge that they can learn and then practice, so that it can yield those outcomes in reality. Those things are possible. They can be achieved. And so tip my hat to you for really taking on a conversation and a practice that needs some of the best minds around.
Thank you so much. All right, so now you've heard it. We've talked about the nutrient-dense foods and the value of having nutrient-dense foods for a long time. And now you can finally pull those into the context of, maybe something like an Elements Meals perfect when it's soccer night, or running the kids around, or playing with your grandchildren and responsibilities there. having something that you can reach for when you're really hungry and you're looking for something nutrient dense, or you're looking to make a lifestyle change, it's a great option. And Stan did something wonderful for us. So going to evolvingageless.com, you'll be able to find there's a link to a code so that you're able to get 20% off your first order from Elements Meals. If it sounds like it's something you want to try and have in your pantry for those nights when you just don't have time, or for that lifestyle shift you said you're ready to make. So anyway, thanks again for being here. I'm going to be back here next week with the same ideas, same mind shifting thoughts about living ageless. Join me then. Bye for now.